Hello everyone and welcome to Season 2, Episode 3 of Paranormal Living with me, your host, Jared Warren. So in this episode, it is all about myself. I've had a few messages from our listeners and on Facebook about my development, how I've been coping over this last coming up to 12 months with this lockdown, and some advice they need and how I started and obviously where I feel like I am going forward as well. So I do hope you find this interesting. I'm really excited for this to tell my story. Obviously I've sort of talked about bits, and a lot of you know about my granddad, which I did an episode on him as well. He was obviously the one who brought me up around the paranormal. This is my story, and like you said, this is more of an in-depth look of how I got started and where we are going forward. Just before we do get into my story, there's a few things I'd like to mention. Don't forget to like us on Facebook at Paranormal Living. You can get us on Twitter as well, Paranormal Live 20. We are now on TikTok as well. As many of you know, TikTok's all the rage at the moment. So we have set up a Paranormal Living on TikTok as well, where I'll be posting out some videos and answering some questions on there, which we will be starting just after this weekend. Also, don't forget, Saturday night from 8 p.m. GMT time, we will be live on the Facebook page with our Paranormal Living Live, and we'll be doing a few experiments again. And talking of the live vigil and the experiments we have been doing, we did one 2 weeks ago now, and it was an amazing night. I've shared the footage on the Facebook page, so you can get it on there. So me and Jay did get some new equipment. We got a K2 meter. I got some dowsing rods. We did the annual vigil, which always seems to be the finish of the evening for the last hour or so on the live feeds. So many, Jay's flat is quite active. For those who have obviously seen the live vigils we have been doing. On this night, we thought we'll try this new equipment out. So we set the K2 meter up. To be honest, nothing really happened at that point. So I just sat in the hallway near where the K2 is, and Jay took over the Facebook Live. So I decided to, try and get Spirit to come forward with some success. Like I said, the K2 didn't go off, but I started sensing this gentleman around me, and I'm telling Jay what I'm feeling, what I'm sensing, what I'm seeing, and it was absolutely amazing. And describe this gentleman and say everything about him, and I think there was two gentlemen, if I remember correctly, and then there was someone stood in the landing as well, because I couldn't see them physically, but I could sense their energy and sort of pick up about them. And as I'm describing this gentleman, one of our listeners and regulars watchers of the live podcast was Carl, and he took everything I said to him. And the thing was, I guess, sort of freaked me out more than anything. So after we'd finished, he sent a message to the page, and he sent me a picture of the gentleman who I'd described down to the T. I could see him in my mind's eye. That's the easiest way to explain it, like with your third eye. And when Carl sent me this picture, it made me jump and made me sort of go, oh my days. And exactly what I saw in my mind's eye was sent to me on this picture. This gentleman was this spit image of who I saw. And, it just gave me that reassurance that I am working with Spirit, and, I am a nightmare for doubting myself. I always have been. It just reassured me that what I was doing was correct. Another thing what did happen as well in the vigil. So at this point, I'm in charge of the Facebook Live and Jay's in the hallway. So calling out as usual, asking Spirit to make the lights go off, like the K2 to flicker, or for us to feel anything around us. And then as I'm talking to Facebook, as Jay's calling out, he then proceeds to shout me. So at that point, I'm like, everything okay? He's like, you need to come here. So I got up and I went into the hallway, and he's like, look at the chandelier. And no word of a lie, the chandelier was swinging as if it had been pushed. And now for a fact, Jay hadn't stood up. Jay was sat down on the landing, and obviously the dog's tiny, so there is no way for that chandelier to start moving the way it did. And the footage is on Facebook, so you can get us on there to view it, and YouTube, of course. So as I spin the camera around, and it gets faster, which is bizarre because watching it back, I didn't realise at the time, and sort of just taking it all in. But going back and watching it, you can see it pushing more and moving faster. And, them things are heavy, and that's never ever happened before. So it was an amazing experience, to say the least. So going forward, which this is exciting news regarding the live shows on Facebook and YouTube, we are aiming to start recording very soon to start episode 1 of the Paranormal Living TV. But we're also have a few venues lined up where we'll be doing some live vigils as well. So different camera angles, different rooms, so you can all get involved with us on that one as well. There is so much to look forward to going forward for Paranormal Living. I'm really, really excited, and I hope you can join us all the way with this, because it's going to be amazing. Now it is time to get into the episode. So I do hope this helps some of you who are asking for advice. You know, I've got a few questions which I will answer as well along the way. But for me, it all started when I was young, actually. As many of you know, I've done an episode on my granddad and talked about my granddad in numerous episodes. He was a medium, a very well-respected medium, and someone I was very, very, very close to. And still to this day, even though he's not physically here, he helps me a lot with my development, and I've had some amazing experiences with him since he's been gone. It all started for me when I was about 4 years old, 3-4 years old. I saw my first apparition, and it was of this elderly lady, and she was stood in the doorway of my bedroom. Still to this day, I don't know who she is. She's never come forward. Meditations I've done, messages I've received, readings I've had, just never come forward, and I still to this day don't know who she is. But I remember seeing her, and I remember what she looked like. And this happened on and off for quite some time. I used to go to bed, and I'd always look in the doorway, and she'd be stood there. But she'd never say anything. She'd just stand there and look at me. And then she'd just disappear, just go. And when I was about 5, it all seemed to just stop. Never experienced anything really through my early childhood after that moment. But I do know now from experience and things with learning that when you get to the age of 4, you either take it with you or, you know, you sort of let it go, and then it'll come back to you when you get older, which seems to have happened with myself. When I was about 7 years old, it was around that time, I found out that my granddad was a medium, but it was a secret. And going to a Catholic school, it's not something you go into school and start talking about. And I found out that he was a medium. And then when I got to about 11 years old, he started taking me to the churches with him. And that completely opened my eyes to a whole new world. The first church I did go to was Clitheroe, which is not too far from Burnley. And that was, I'd say, my granddad's main service he did, the more regular one, which was also the last church he did a service at as well. One thing I do remember walking into there, every time we went, the energy was amazing, it was beautiful. And everyone was so lovely and so friendly. And it was just a lovely community, the best way to put it. And at that age, obviously not knowing what to expect, I just thinking, oh, Granddad talks to dead people. That's the way to explain it. Now knowing different, it's speaking to spirit. And I just remember being so engrossed by everything what was going on. It was amazing. Then at the end, they served the tea and coffee, so I used to sit on the little rostrum they have there, and people coming up to my granddad and like just in awe of it all. As I mentioned, I did a podcast about my granddad and spoke about some of them services we did. And that became a regular thing then. I used to go to the church services with him. So he finished school, go to his for tea, and then we go to a service, which I think it was mainly on a Thursday, if I remember, Tuesday or Thursday. And I just remember at that point saying, this is what I want to do. I want to work with spirit. I want to be able to do this. And I just remember talking to my granddad about it all the time. And he's like, no, it's not for you. You know, this is not your thing. Yours is music, which it still is to this day. You know, as many of you know, I'm a singer, Elvis tribute. But looking back now, personally, I think he knew I could do it, but he knows what I'm like. I'm one of them I can get a bit impatient sometimes, which it says on one of my readings he did for me. I think he was sort of edging me in without going too deep into it all, and just letting me be around, you know, different mediums and just embracing it all. Like I say, you couldn't help but not just sit there and be in awe of everything. So that happened for quite some time. I had a couple of experiences, you know, in my early teens, but it was nothing compared to obviously what's going on now. Looking back though, I do find that I was very sensitive to things. For example, like when I'm in the house, felt like there was someone there, or someone watching me, or something around me. I always felt that, but I didn't know what it was. I used to talk to my granddad. He explained, probably just spirit around you. It's okay. And that happened. And I used to hear shuffling a lot as well in the bedroom, which used to freak me out. But obviously, I didn't really understand it as such. But it was always sort of an occurrence around me. You sort of get used to it in the end, but it still freaked you out a bit. And then my granddad was having these experiences where he'd hear the phone ring, even though it wasn't ringing. And it was as if there was someone on the end of it. It'd be like a dead line. And this kept happening, and the phone, what it used to do, this phone had been disconnected for years. It was in his bedroom and wouldn't work. Until the one day I was sat there, and he was asleep in his chair, and he shot up straight right and went, the phone just rang. I went, no, it's not. And he picked it up and went, listen. So I walked over, listened to the phone. Dead line, completely dead, as if someone was on the other side of it, but not saying anything. And this was one of the experiences I will never forget. Still baffles me to this day. Unbelievable. So not long after that, my granddad did unfortunately pass away. But I always know he's been around me. So not long after he'd passed, I did go for a reading, and he did come through. Let us know that it was okay, which obviously settles your mind a bit. Because you do go into that stage of doubting a bit, because he'd been such a prominent figure in my life. And he always seemed to have the answer to everything. And me and my brother was talking about this just the other day. And then you're like, I haven't got that person anymore. Or it doesn't feel like that. I'd had a reading and I've been to a church, but it sort of died off a bit. I stopped going and still had an interest in it, but it wasn't the same. And then I moved to Blackpool in 2013. And I found out there was a church here, so I went to the church, went to the service, and there was a gentleman on rostrum called Walsh, who's one of my favourite mediums. I'm hoping at some point to be able to get him on here for an interview. Again, my granddad had come through. He said everything about my granddad, described him down to a T. Very accurate and full of evidence. And again, you walk away going, wow, you know he's around you. It's mind-boggling, even for me now doing, I've done some readings and give out messages. It still amazes me to work with spirit and, to give people this evidence and accurate messages where they know that their loved ones are around them and that there is life after death. And again, I walked out of that church with the same mindset going, he's here, he's okay. Ring my mum straight away. My mum had a few experiences growing up, of course, and we're all very open to the spiritual world and things. But like I say, you walk out, you know he's okay, you know he's around you, family's there. And we moved into this house, which is where I live now, in Blackpool, and it wasn't long till the experiences started happening in here, which then led me on to going to the awareness class. So the first thing what did happen, I do remember I was in the bathroom, I was in the bath, and the pulley switch started swinging back and forth as if someone had just pushed it or playing with it, which was weird. Didn't think anything of it, because then you use your rational mind thinking, did I knock it before I got in the bath or something? And in the bedroom, I'd put the laptop in the middle of the bed. I was getting ready to go to a gig and just playing some music. Went downstairs, I and my stuff, come upstairs, the laptop is on the floor. And this is long before my daughter was born, and it's just me and my wife at this point in the house. And the laptop was on the floor upside down, but like as a triangle, so the screen and the base are sort of upright, as if someone had just placed it on the floor. So I'm like, they must not like the music I was listening to. I think it was the Stylistics or something. And that happened. And then I had this Bible. It's on the bookshelf. This Bible was given to me by my uncle and auntie back in 1993 at my baptism. And I've always had it with me. Not that I necessarily look at it, but I've always had it with me. And it's on the bookshelf, never been touched, just sits there. One day we come downstairs, the Bible had been taken from the shelf, placed on top of some other books, and it was open on a certain page. And the picture on the page across from it was Jesus walking on water. And I was like, right, that's a bit weird, because no one else had touched it. I still have that page marked off to this day, but I rang my mum, as this had happened, as I always do when anything like this happens, or I'm getting on in my class. And she mentioned about going to the spiritualist church, and I ain't been back for a while. So I took the afternoon to go back, and the medium was Walsh again, it was. And after he'd finished his service, I do remember I didn't get a message that service, but after he'd finished, he went downstairs, where they normally have like tea and biscuits and things, where you can speak to the medium and sort of just like I say, community. And people get together and have a chat about the messages or a bit of a gossip. And I approached him and explained to him about some of these things, what were happening, like the laptop, the Bible, especially the Bible being open on a specific page, and so what I was experiencing. And he told me, he said, you need to go to an awareness class. they're giving you signs for you to start, open up and work with spirit. So I'm like, okay. And he said, there is an awareness class here at Blackpool. So I'm like, right, okay, brilliant. So I left the church, and it was quite some time before I actually considered going to an awareness class. And I think what sort of jumped me to that conclusion to go was another reading I had, which was at the house. It was over an Easter weekend back in 2017, I think it was. And we'd had this reading, and I was going through that stage again, a bit doubty, and as you do, it's just a natural thing. If anything, I think it makes you work harder because you want to find more evidence. And I had this reading, unbelievable reading, and we'd been out to watch this show with my mum, my stepdad and my wife. And then when we got home, we have this big cat post, what they used for scratching, was in the middle of the front room. Nobody had touched it. Nobody had moved it. As soon as the reading finished, we all left. I was the last one to leave. Locked up. Go straight to watch the show and some food. And that was at that point I went, right, okay. I think there is a message here to go to an awareness class or a church at least. Someone wants to get in contact. So then I did find the class. There was a few different ones I was looking at, but come to the conclusion about the Blackpool Church. Because I like Blackpool Church. I've been for a couple of services, and it's one of the original churches in the country, which is still standing with the original bricks and stuff, and beautiful place. And then I went to the first awareness class, which was with Jay. I was a bit apprehensive because you don't know what to expect. You don't know anyone there. There's quite a few people in the room, but everyone was lovely, so welcoming. The president then asked us, tell a bit about yourself, your experiences. We did, and then we did a meditation, and we picked up a few things. Jay had heard a voice, and I was sort of seeing things in the meditation, but I have a habit of dropping in meditations too far, sort of going into semi-trance. That does happen a lot. And after going for some time, Ronnie, who is the president, he sort of gauged how everyone works differently. So you might get some mediums who see things, you might get some mediums who hear, you might get some mediums who just sense things. The healers, everyone works in different ways, so he goes around to find out how you work. And because I have this habit of dropping in meditations, it's like trance. It looks like that could be your thing, so we'll try it. On a few occasions, we did try trance. For those who are thinking about this, you need a very strong medium to help you guide you and be there as your safety net, the best way to explain it. So we did that on a few occasions, dropped down. For me, when I experienced it, I didn't go into a deep trance because I'd never done it before. But I was aware that I was sat in the chair, and I was aware of the room I was in. I knew I was in the church, in the classroom, but I wasn't aware what was going on. Very weird. And when I come out of it, they were telling me obviously what I experienced, which was like my body moving and my face changing, and interesting. I'm glad I did it, but I'd definitely like to do it again. I definitely feel like it's something to be worked on for myself as well. You do need someone with you. It's not safe to do it on your own. You definitely need that rock or that strong medium with you. One thing I will say about Blackpool Church's rostrum, the energy on that place is absolutely phenomenal. It's the original building, one of the only original churches still standing, which was built by Emma in Britain. You can tell they've had some phenomenal mediums on that rostrum over the years. The last time I got to stand on that rostrum was early last year, which was the last time I went to the class. And I gave out 2 messages, was in the awareness class. And it's the most accurate messages I've ever given, down to a T, to specifics. Because with me, my issue is doubt too much. So I'll get something, or I'll see something in my mind's eye. But then I'm thinking, is it me doing that? Or is it from spirit? And that happens a lot, and I'm a nightmare for it. Rather than just saying it, I sometimes keep hold of it. And then at that point, you've just put your own thoughts into it. The way I find spirit work with me, it's so fast. So you will get something, but it's quicker than your train of thought, if that makes sense. So I'm in my 5th year now of development. I've learned how to calm my mind a lot and sort of open your mind and, like you say, calm it so then you can get these messages in. But I'm still a nightmare for doubting things. And then I moved classes, which was just before the end of Blackpool. It just got to the point for me where you feel like you've got so far with a certain class and that it's time to move on, which is where I met Denise. And as many of you know, my granddad helped Denise when she started, and now she's helping me, which is lovely. And I went to her class. She told the class who I was and sort of introduced myself. And then she explained that who my granddad was. So at that point, I'm feeling pressure here because there's quite a few people knew my granddad in that class. And knew, obviously, he was a very, very good medium. So I'm thinking, they're expecting me to be like my granddad. Which is like nowhere near the truth. And that was the first time for a while I gone and sat in a class and felt comfortable. And then it wasn't long after that we started doing messages. So we'd stand up in front of everyone. The way Denise works in the class, so when we're doing an experiment, like messages or readings or anything like that, she gives you a raffle ticket. She goes around the room, gives the raffle tickets out. And no word of lie, every time we do an experiment, my ticket comes out. I don't know why. So this one week we're doing messages. And again, I stood up there and I was last as well. And this one woman said, saving the best till last. And I'm like, oh, don't. Definitely not that way. You know, again, telling me I'm only in my 4th year at this point. I give out this messages. It was so accurate again. I still find it mind-boggling that to be able to give people this information and giving that proof that there is the loved ones are there. There is life after death. After the class finished and she's like, you're in the right place. I said, yeah, definitely. I said, I believe that myself. And I've been there ever since. I've done the odd class back at Blackpool last year while Denise's class was cancelled. So one of the questions I was asked was, how do I work? So as I mentioned, I am developing. But for me, I see it in my mind. I don't hear spirit. I don't physically see them stood in front of me. Although I've had some occasions where I've seen shadows or seen the outline of someone. Like just the other night, I saw someone in the mirror. I have a mirror in the bedroom, and it's always creeped me out having a mirror in a bedroom. Until the other night, I looked at it and there was someone stood there. But for me, like I say, it's all in my mind. So if I get a word or the letter, you know, I'll see a picture or I'll see a video or I'll see an object, but it's all in my third eye, my mind's eye. And that's the way I work at the minute, but next week it could completely change because I do know a few people who will go up one week and maybe work clairaudiently, where they'll just hear. Then the next week they could get up there, they don't work like that anymore, and they'll maybe just work sensory, or they'll see the footage or the videos in the mind, or physically see spirit. And many people work different ways. Another thing I'd like to mention is about spirit guides. It can take a while for you to meet your spirit guide. I've only had 2 occasions where I've seen Brother Russell, as we've now come to call him. On the couple of occasions I've seen him, he's never said anything. The first time I did meet him was end of a meditation, was ready to close down. It was coming to the end of the awareness class in Blackpool. And I saw his face right in front of me. He had this dark cloak on. He looked a lot like a monk. Didn't say anything. And he just looked at me. And there was another occasion again around this meditations where he does tend to make an appearance. But again, doesn't say anything to me, just lets me know that he's there. The reason we come with the name Russell is because I'd had this dream and he'd appeared in this dream. And I could hear a little girl talking to me. She kept saying the name Russell. Russell. And it kept going on. And then I woke up in the morning and then I rang Denise to tell her about this dream I'd had and this experience I'd had. And that's how we come to the name of Brother Russell. And he makes the odd appearance, but it's very rare. It's more in just the meditations, him letting me know that he is there. But I do know the other guide, which is my main guide, which is my granddad. When I had a reading, he come through and he said, I'm in his spiritual pocket, which I think is an absolute blessing. And it just shows you that he is helping me with my development. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, going back to the beginning, he did know. And it's time to help me even more, which I think is absolutely beautiful. Another thing I would like to mention, as you're developing, it's always good to shut down every night, because sometimes you can open yourself without realising. One of the ways I tend to shut down is I imagine a big cloak, and I wrap this cloak around me as tight as I can. I say thank you to Spirit for being around me and for working with me, and I will call upon them when I am ready to start work again. And then as soon as I feel ready, I drop that cloak and I am shut down. Opening up for me, the way I see it, is the light. And this light starts from down by your feet, and then it gradually comes up through the body and up to your neck. And you never let it go over your face. Obviously everyone can open up differently. Some people use mirrors, where they turn all the mirrors backwards and then forwards. But this is how I work. And then normally the light comes from source, which is above you. And then the light comes down and it meets the light together. And then I always see it as like a big firework. And that's when I know I'm open and ready to start work. Another thing as well is meditation. Meditation is key with your development, you know, to clear your mind, especially in them early days when you first start. You know, in that first 12 months of me, my brain was constantly overloading. overworking. I was struggling to sort of meditate, as now, I don't do it as often as I should do, but just to clear your mind for 10 minutes a day, even on a normal day, you're just feeling stressed and you need some time out to yourself, just 10 minutes, it does the world of good and it just settles your mind. So these last 12 months, coming up to 12 months, have not been easy. All the classes have been cancelled. So it's been difficult with the development because I'm used to being in a class and the one-to-one, and it does help me a lot more than just sat at home trying to do things and meditation, especially when you've got a young one running around. So in my class with Denise, we have a group on Facebook which is all the members of the class in there. And she said, we're going to do an experiment this week. And she got this picture of this man and this woman, elderly couple. She's like, I want you to give a reading for it. So opened up and then just looked to this photo on the group and just wrote down what I felt. Again, doubting myself as I do. And Denise got the gentleman to comment on people's posts about what was right and if anything was wrong. And I got this notification saying, has commented on your comment. So I'm like, pacing up and down the landing, telling my wife I was nervous. Because I do remember saying that I felt someone touched my leg. So I mentioned about the lady having a pain in her leg. It's about these teacups, I think it was. He commented saying everything you said was right. And I went, oh my days. You just think like, wow. To be able to, again, as I've reiterated a few times, to be able to just give people that evidence that there is life after death and your family are around you. Absolutely phenomenal. So that was in the middle of lockdown last year. So with having no class and not that one-to-one teacher, she gives me some ideas what to do. So I've been working with tarot cards, which is a great tool to use. So I own my granddad's cards, which he'd had for absolute donkey's years. They're a lot older than me. Must have had them since the 70s. And I own a couple of other packs because my granddad's ones are that old school tarot cards, so they're a bit harder to read. But getting there slowly. I've been working with them and working with a few other different packs, so mixing them together. And doing a few readings for people, friends, family, just to get started, and also another tool to use. Where am I now? So for me at the moment, I'm having some crazy experiences again, but I do feel spirit stronger at the minute. I mentioned this on the podcast. I had a reading off Denise, and we were talking about my spiritual pathway, and she said I am ready to start doing readings. But since she has said that, I do feel that spirit stronger because I saw someone in the mirror the other day. For example, last night, which is Tuesday night, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was completely wide awake, as if there was someone in the room. Couldn't see anyone. I've been having a lot of dreams as well, and recently the dreams I've been having are like being in a classroom. These dreams do happen regular, and it's always I'm being taught something or I'm put in a certain situation. How would you get out of it? What would you do in this situation? And it's all very spiritual, and sometimes it's a bit scary depending what situation you're in, but it's all a learning process. And I'm on my spiritual pathway, and I'm being taught these things, especially at the minute while there's no classes, seem to be happening a lot. And the most recent dream I had, which has happened a few times, I'm in the water. So I have a weird obsession with the Titanic. So it's something what's really interested me. I don't know why, but I just found the story, it really does interest me. I'm underwater and I can see all these people around me. I can't see what they look like, they're all like shadows, but I can see them all around me. But then I shoot up from the water, but then the dream ends. And that's happened a few times, but the water's really clear, which is a good sign. But as I mentioned about readings, that is something I am going to be starting. If you would like a reading from me, this is what we call fledgling. So disclosure here that, I'm not a fully developed medium. Some things might not be correct, what I say. I'm still in the development stage, so it's still a learning process for me. But if you would like a reading, please do get in contact. The email is below in the description, so you can email us, paranormallivingpodcast@gmail.com, and we can sort something out for you. For my future plans, I'm really excited going forward. My aim is to be able to work with spiritualist churches. That's what I like to do. That's what my granddad did, and I like to follow on from what he did. I do believe that I will get there. Keep humble, keep a level head, and you will get there. Sometimes it's best just to wait rather than rush into it. Of course, doing some mediumship with the Paranormal Living, maybe on a live feed. And as well for me, it's about specifics as well, and working hard and working to be able to give people the messages they need. And for you to walk out of this reading, again, reiterating this, my family is around me. You feel the love, you feel the energy. That's what it's about to me. It's not about money, not about wealth, not about being famous. It's just about doing this and helping people. You know, what better feeling than that? You know, that's what it's about for me. So everyone, that was a brief half an hour or so about my story of start to where I am now. I do hope you've enjoyed it. You know, I just thank you very much for getting in contact and for the listeners wanting to know about me and more of an in-depth look into my life and my life working with spirit and where, like I say, where I am now. Do remember everyone, this Saturday we will be live at 8 p.m. GMT on the Paranormal Living page and Paranormal Living TV on YouTube. All the links in the description below. And if you would like a reading, you know, please do get in contact and we can sort that out with you. Last but not least, everyone, just thank you very much for listening to this episode. Leave a review. Let me know you're enjoying the podcast. Anything you'd like to know, anything you'd like us to talk about going forward for me and Jay, or if you would even like to be on the podcast, because we are looking for new guests. We have a few people lined up going forward, so I'm really excited for that. But thank you again, everyone, for listening. Love and light. Adios.